Well, James, is it Damore?
I think it's just Damore.
Is it?
I thought it was Damore. Yeah.
I thought it was Damore.
I want to be clear that whatever it is, I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm going to have a dozen people tweet at me. So far, that's a running theme of the show.
It's fine.
15 pedants will be tweeting us.
I got a lot of people mad about me calling Mueller. I had a lot of people mad that I talked about the Daubert report.
The what?
Daubert expert stuff. Very mad.
Isn't Mueller, though? I feel like Mueller is one of those things like Boehner, where like Mueller is probably the correct off-the-boat pronunciation, and it's just been Americanized over time.
I don't think that's right. I think actually the MUE is just like, just Mueller. Mm-hmm. but my position is a very profound indifference to how the names of people who I don't know personally
That's the
are
correct
pronounced.
position, I think.
I mean, that's fair.
I mean, if he indicts me, I'll be less likely to say it correctly. Gotta troll him into dropping the charges.
That's right.
In your civil suit.
Sometimes you gotta pick a fight with the prosecutor. It's fine.
Yep. That's what we covered that in the last episode.
I still haven't listened to it because I'm a monster. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Okay.
I don't...
You hate the children of the podcast.
Understandable.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of Mike Dicta, America's best named legal podcast. We are back with some old friends and a new member of the team. We have from Brooklyn with me, the hell dude, Tarek.
Hello.
From Minnesota, we have back Christina is here again.
What's up?
Dialing in from Illinois, everyone say hi to Robin.
Hi, everybody.
And joining us for the first time, also from New York, we've got Peter.
Hello.
So we have gone for some deep cut, stupid litigation for most of the podcast for this week. And we're going to start out in the men going their own way world with James Damore and his attempt at a class action against Google on the grounds that he was discriminated against for being white and male and conservative in a world where those things are shunned, the tech world.
Allegedly shunned.
As we all know, it is very hard to make it as a man in tech, and James Damore is no exception. So he wrote a very long complaint. It's
the worst.
It's so long.
It's ungodly long.
And there are so many memes. So many memes.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing we're gonna have to talk about is that the people at Google are really big fans, and this is really important to the legal claims of that sad puffin meme.
They love the sad puffin so much. They're also they're using memes from like 5 years ago. Like they're not even good memes. It's the like Velociraptor from 2012.
Yeah.
Even worse, they're using Google Plus, it seems. Which, I mean, if anything is going to turn you into a crypto Nazi, being forced to use Google Plus, I feel like that's it.
I don't know. It seems like it's the googly way to use Google Plus. That is something that is a phrase that comes up way too often. And with like the fact that there is a googly way really almost makes me root for James Damore to win and bankrupt the place. If it weren't for his winning.
Yeah, like that was like my reaction reading the complaint is like all the people like sounded so insufferable. I was like, shit, I'm a men's rights activist now because I hate all these liberals at Google.
Well, and it reads like going through the complaint almost, it reads like you're reading like cult deprogramming language almost. Like they have the most incredibly specific terminology that all hinges around the word Google.
Yeah.
Like, reading it, my eyes cross.
No, it does. No, it does. It does sound the whole place sounds very cult-like. But to get to the actual claim, all of these memes, like all of the memes are just to show that all of the Google employees were just being incredibly mean-spirited about conservative viewpoints. And so, like, they were just all really kind of insanely normie memes about diversity, you know? Like, the one that I just sort of scrolled to a random thing, and it is an old Futurama meme where Fry has his hand nailed to the 0 days since last accident sign, but without even getting rid of the word accident. It just says 0 days since last white male says diversity isn't important.
Fucking got him.
Nailed it.
He's dead. He's dead, and that's now in the Santa Clara court. What a lot of the complaint really hinges on is how message boardy the whole place is. Like, there's a lot of James Damore going to like sensitivity trainings and diversity trainings and then arguing at them. And then the manifesto was basically in response to one of them, you know, like, here are all of the things that you missed. But the majority of the complaint is like almost 100 pages.
It's 100 pages
of memes and postings from the internal message board.
How do they get anything done?
I mean, know.
Do they just spend all day at Google, like, kind of feebly shitposting liberal memes? Like, Jesus Christ, these people make, like, 6 figures. Like, you would think they would be a little bit more productive, but...
Isn't the dirty secret of actual work that no one since the advent of computers actually works more than an hour and a half a day?
Excuse me.
Like, I don't think
I have never worked. Like, I've never not done work while at work. Thank you.
Wow.
Robin is off the pod.
Yeah, that is unreal.
Nope.
I question your dedication to the podcast in that case.
You know.
I literally do not believe whatever comes out of your mouth next. That lie is so brazen.
The big joke is
that I should hang up on you.
So look, you got 61 pages of factual averments and causes of action and 100 pages of exhibits here. Can somebody sort of round up what the complaint itself is saying and what sort of the theories are here? Does anybody have kind of a summary of it?
Yeah, I can do that. And I guess first, maybe it's useful for anyone that hasn't heard the full story to backtrack to August last year when James Damore was fired after circulating this memo, which was like a 10-page length memo in response to Google's diversity policies. The gist of which was men and women have all these biological differences, and those differences probably excuse the discrepancies between male and female populations in the tech world. That resulted in him getting canned and then doing like a short stint in conservative media before everyone realized that he's, I think, like one of the least charming people you'll ever see.
And ugly.
I mean, it's really like I think he probably had a career like set out for him, and then he was on a couple of podcasts, and everyone's like, well, I guess never mind. We'll just kind of leave him to his own devices here. So the complaint brings a few different claims. It brings political speech claims, which are protected in California. Your employer is not allowed to coerce or influence your speech by taking action against you in the workplace. However, the law is kind of restricted to activity that takes place outside of the workplace, and this is sort of a middle ground. And then there's discrimination.
Wait, I kind of want to ask about that because when I was reading the complaint, that was one of the things that came up, is there were all of these claims about political speech. And I was hoping someone knew this. That just doesn't sound like a viewpoint diversity cause of action. It sounds more like you can't fire someone for going to a political protest or something, or exercising First Amendment rights in a sort of overtly political way, as opposed to just having a contrary opinion. Like, it just seems weird structurally otherwise. And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't nuts, that he was just kind of misreading that law.
Well, I think what he's doing is that he's saying that, like, he's by posting, he's protesting in the public forum. I mean, that's
but that's not political. That's just workplace policy, right? That's not towards any political goal, right? I mean, it's a social goal, but it's not a political social goal.
Okay.
So courts haven't addressed this in tons of detail, but I'm not super experienced in California, but my understanding of these things is that it is kind of blurry around the margins, where you have, so you definitely, it doesn't have to be like affirmative activity, it can be party affiliation and things like that. This to me is kind of like a middle ground. The main difference, or the main reason it's totally okay for them to fire him with respect to the memo, is that he's doing it internally, right? I mean, it's not something that he's doing external to his job, and that's what's really protected in California, is you going off on your own and doing whatever political activity you deem fit, not like circulating a memo that is directly about your employer. I mean, it's kind of like dead on the type of thing that's not protected.
I have a question though. I mean, just for sake of argument, I mean, he is raising issues of discrimination allegedly, right? And leaving aside the merits of it, he is raising a claim that there is some sort of discriminatory environment in the workplace, and principles of retaliation, or also labor law, do kind of permit you to discuss those things in the workplace or to raise those complaints. So is there something there, or is it just you can't agitate your fellow employees with such memos, and if you do, you get fired?
There's definitely something there. I mean, it's best to think of, if you think of a very kind of harmless memorandum that is about Google, has political overtones, but is kind of inoffensive, broadly speaking, being circulated, it would seem to a lot of people to be a lot more protectable. But the court is going to do a kind of a balancing act here, and I don't think that he's like 100% going to strike out on his retaliation claims. I think that he's got an okay chance. But he also has to demonstrate that the retaliation claims are that the retaliation is because of some protected activity or characteristic. And Google's going to say, of course, it's not because he's white. Of course, it's not because he's a man. It's because the memo caused a giant stir that was disruptive to the workplace. And they'll say it's not protected speech for the same reason that I just discussed, that it's internal, it's not external.
Yeah. I think there are parts of his claim that I thought, and I mean, it's just, I think he's got decent attorneys who can draft a decent complaint. Like, I thought his sex and race discrimination claims essentially read just like boilerplate. Any attempts to affirmatively address diversity are per se violative of civil rights laws, right? Like that reverse discrimination is just at its most affirmative action or anything that sounds like it at its most basic structural level is just flat illegal under the California civil rights laws, right? I think those claims are probably going to go nowhere. My assumption is that there's plenty of case law in California that approves of diversity efforts generally.
Yeah, and those efforts, so obviously diversity trainings at companies like Google are designed by lawyers. They're designed to be just unbelievably not illegal, right? I mean, you can tell from the complaint, but the way that all of these are structured is just like you have these unconscious biases. Here's how you combat them, right? They're never going to say anything suggestive of doing hiring based on.
Holy fucking shit!
All right.
Hold on. Sorry, there's a mouse in my kitchen right now.
Okay, Tarek, we're gonna take this opportunity of Christina, send Dido over to Robin. She's only 3 panels over.
I've got 2 giant ferals in my backyard.
2 minutes.
This is an unbelievable display of cowardice.
I know, she did everything short of stand on a chair.
I thought honestly that she was going to say there was a fire when
I thought she was being swatted.
Right.
Quietly. Here, I'll migrate to the
What do we need to talk about next?
I think talking more about what is kind of the hostile work environment-ish kind of thing, because, I mean, like, we'll get... I really think there may even be something to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they were, mean to him.
Sorry. We've been fighting about whether or not this mouse exists for, several months.
Get yourself the Rat Zapper 3000.
What's that?
It is the greatest thing that has ever been invented.
Is that real?
Yeah. It is a gigantic... It is a gigantic, roach motel.
Battery-operated mouse
with
trap.
an electric chair.
It's a killing field for mice, because you think you have a mouse, you have 20 mice.
I don't like that.
Yeah. So get yourself the Rat Zapper. You will thank me later.
Okay, I will get the Rat Zapper.
Get the Rat Zapper.
Now we're going to record the podcast. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Could you imagine? I think the Rat Zapper has to be.
That's going to be our first sponsor.
That's the least
seductive.
It is the least seductive wish list item.
Yeah.
I'll put it on mine.
Please buy me this electric chair to kill all the vermin in my apartment.
Zap me, Daddy.
Thank you. I feel...
Does it turn you on that I'm killing vermin by the truckload?
I'm sure there are plenty of guys willing to settle for that.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So I guess one of the things that I thought was interesting about the complaint, and this goes back to the sort of never stop posting culture at Google, is that after the memo was circulated, and certainly in response to other complaints to other conservatives at Google, people really would go ape shit on them on the boards, with being really calling for them to get fired and wishing them, illness and death. And I mean, this is direct communications with a coworker. And they would just casually type on the message board, people who think like you do should be banned from the workplace. And I mean, it's not like these were insignificant employees. In certain cases, they're like, this person is my direct report. And I think this kind of thing is exactly what I would never want to see in the workplace. And like, I gotta tell you, there was a lawyer at Google looking through those things and just like screaming that they have to kill the entire intranet.
Well, something that was interesting to me about all of it is that like it seems like HR sort of monitors like these chat boards. And so I was like shocked at like what they were just like letting happen because, you know, like they were literally threatening illness and death to their fellow coworkers like in a workspace. It was just incredible.
It's funny because, you know, as inside counsel for a company, you know, 40% of my job is to tell people to stop using email and stop writing stuff. And I'm surprised, quite honestly, that nobody's had the, you know, foresight to step in at some point and curtail some of this. You're exactly right.
I mean, I think it's just because it's completely antithetical to Google's internal culture, which is like supposed to be like really freewheeling and free communication. And they've like thrown the doors open so wide that people are comfortable being like, nice opinion, hope you die.
Right.
And then people report that to HR. And now we know who is training the Twitter people to read like threat reports because they're like, I don't know, that seems okay. Your opinion was pretty bad.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is how much like this stuff gets escalated to HR and they're just like, well, I don't think you're contextualizing this properly. That person's very angry. So, you know, this kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's like every response is basically like, thanks and go fuck yourself, which is like just is how you get a lawsuit. Like,
I didn't expect any of the, like, it's because, you know, you get the complaint. I expected none of it to be sympathetic. And I expected, you know, I mean, there are 100 pages of memes. And like, I just thought, and so much of it is written in Fedora language, right? Where they're just like, I am a person who thinks of myself as a fan of logic, and they never responded to me logically. And it all sounds, right, classical liberal who believes in reason and logic. And all of that should add up to just like steaming garbage. And then in the middle of all of it, it is dozens, if not hundreds, of message board posts where people are as unhinged as they are like on Twitter, but it's a work account.
Right.
It's like literally their work account
with their first and last
talking
name.
to other. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Right. So, and that, oh, by the way, speaking of first and last names, that was another crazy thing about the complaint.
The redactions.
Every left-wing person's name is left in the complaint, unredacted. And except for the two class plaintiffs, Damore and this other guy whose name I don't remember because he didn't draft a 10-page lunatic memo.
Goodman.
Yeah, yes, not a good man, I will say. Yep. So, except for them, every conservative who they quote, even when there's a dialogue between a left-wing and a right-wing guy, they redacted every conservative's name from the complaint like they're blurring out faces at Charlottesville. And but every liberal probably had like just an absolute shit show on their own social media accounts because they got named in this complaint.
Well, but to speak up for the SJWs for a second, you know, there is theoretically some editing going on here. You know, we're certainly getting, you know, all of the greatest hits from his perspective. Sure. So we don't have
Not
a full
that,
picture. Not just
that, but some of these, a lot of them, I would say, even the majority of what's included is not. I mean, there are some very bad comments that should make Google lawyers pretty concerned. But there's a lot of like pretty bland liberal sentiment where it's just like, I think Trump's kind of racist and voting for him is bad. And I mean, then that's really like the end of it. And it's there's kind of like a hypocrisy throughout it because he's saying that these constitute harassment or discrimination, but at the same time, him circulating a memo which basically concludes that women will be less suited on average to work at Google is protected speech. There's kind of like a weird tension throughout it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of filler, like just the fact of people approving the Nazi punching video was evidence of bias. There's a lot of junk in here, right? It's 61 pages, and very little of it really seems to like grab a toehold on anything, but some of it.
Can we talk about the fact that he got laughed at a diversity meeting? Then it's in the complaint. Several paragraphs are just the plaintiffs getting like mercilessly owned at Google, and they put it in like it looks good for them or something. But he's like, I was at the diversity training and I voiced my concern that this might be a little bit sexist, and everybody laughed at me. And that's just like its own paragraph in the complaint.
I used facts.
There's also one of the other plaintiff is like the other plaintiff somehow worse than him. And there's basically one exchange with a trans guy where he's claiming that like the conservatives are the real oppressed class here, and a trans guy just like owns him in a way that I'm pretty sure if he tweeted it would have gone viral. It was just like, you know, a laundry list of all the ways in which he's been discriminated against in reality, and like fully contrasts against this kind of like fake bullshit that that the other guy, Goodman, who's somehow worse than Damore again, is kind of like putting forward. And they put it in the complaint as if it really helped them. I mean, I would have left that shit out, I'm going to be honest. He called his coworker a terrorist, right?
You know what though? I actually don't think that's true. I think the reason why he was upset, and let's be clear that the guy was being an asshole. Goodman was being an asshole, right? A guy of what, if I recall, a guy of Indian descent was basically profiled. And he says, I was profiled. And then Goodman's like, well, how do you know you were profiled based on your race? And the guy's like, well, it was pretty obvious it was by my race. They pulled me over and they questioned me as if I was a terrorist. And Goodman's response is, well, they may have had information about a terrorist attack involving someone who looked like you. And then everyone sort of freaked out at him. And like, he was being obtuse and he was being a jerk, but he wasn't calling the guy a terrorist.
No, but he's doing what Damore does and stopping just like one step short and then claiming that protects him.
But I don't think he was doing it. I don't think he was doing it with guile. I think he's obtuse and dumb and racist, but I don't think that he was trying to antagonize the guy by calling him a terrorist. He was antagonizing the guy because he genuinely believes that profiling is good and works. Right? It's like, it's not the same thing. And he was attacked as if they're literally the same thing. And he's like, wait, I never said that about him. I was talking about the motives of the cops, and you keep thinking that I'm like actually saying that he might be that, right? So he just found the way the conversation went a little lopsided. I mean, I don't want to have a drink with the guy, but like he has like a little bit of a reason to feel like he was being accused of being the wrong kind of racist as opposed to the racist he is.
Right.
But they also both got fired. They both attribute their firing to their conduct, their, speech at work. Mm-hmm. They think they are double hit. They're hit on like the basic diversity grounds because Google is trying for diversity, but then they're getting hit a second time because they're just trying to be normal people having a conversation about politics with people who don't agree, and instead they're getting screamed at and sidelined and fired for it. I mean, like, that's the complaint. They're not mad because the point of the complaint isn't that people are mean to us at work. The point of their complaint is that people are mean to us at work and feel comfortable excluding us from opportunities because of it, right? Mm-hmm. There are paragraphs where a guy says, I would never have this guy on my team. There's a paragraph where there's a guy who says, this person is my direct report and I'm reporting him to HR because this is against Google's values, right? You kind of have to take the complaint as it lies. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit more than just people are mean to me at lunch.
But there is, I think, some of the worst paragraphs, some of the worst allegations in the complaint aren't explicitly targeting conservatives, and you're supposed to kind of infer it. But there are a lot of allegations that involve them people saying, I don't want to work with hostile people. This guy is an asshole. I don't want to work with assholes. Things along those lines. And I think you're supposed to infer that what they mean is conservatives, but there's nothing in the context to lead you there. And I feel like it's just conservatives are so used to being called assholes that they think it's like a dog whistle at this point. And I mean, I can't see any other reason to include them in the complaint because to me it looked dismissible. A lot of the worst allegations are really just them talking about people they don't like, people who are difficult, things like that. And they're saying this is all kind of a code. This is they're talking about conservatives. I really thought that some of the allegations that are the most likely to lead to an inference that an actual adverse, like something adverse actually happened to someone at Google, didn't really seem to be based on anything other than people being hostile or difficult.
I mean,
Mark, you've done this, right? What, where do you think this lies? You too, Christina. I don't know if it's the same in public or private sector, but where do you think this lies on sort of the decent complaint scale?
I think it's a pretty decent complaint. I mean, I think that they raise like issues of fact, and that's why this isn't going to get kicked like immediately. Well, and I think. Go ahead.
You're right, and I think that's kind of where we're all going here. But one thing that I think that we have to grapple with is that this is asserted as a class complaint, and I think the question is really going to be, does this really, because usually with the class case, and folks can jump in here, but you're going to have the fight about whether to certify this as a class, because the stakes are entirely different if they win a class certification versus if they don't. Mm-hmm. And the question is, are all of the white conservative men similarly situated as to these specific allegations, such that Google is really in danger of getting a class certified here? Because once a class gets certified, it's a whole different ballgame. And right. I don't think. I mean, because these are such specific sorts of situations that these people find themselves in, I don't think there's a lot of there as respects the class case. But I do think that there is some there with respect to the other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think he's got a really hard time posing white men as a discriminated class at Google, right? Like, they make up probably a majority or a near majority or plurality of the workforce, right? So I think you'd have a very hard time posing white or male as like a class being discriminated against. Where you're going to prove it with all the promotions?
Well, that's I mean, usually you're going to get a statistician, and you're going to show that these sorts of decisions and this kind of environment has led to disparate outcomes with respect to this class, right? But I assume that the bulk, if not the overwhelming bulk of the folks that are in charge here are white men. So you're already facing an uphill battle on the class statistical
It's going to be hard to prove this one with statistics. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
And without statistics, I don't know how you assert something as sort of broadly affecting people in a negative way.
And then I don't even know how you determine numerosity on the political viewpoint question. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I don't know. I don't even if they try to certify that class, I think that most people who remain gainfully employed at Google are going to be reluctant or entirely, and I'm talking about the conservatives who are still working there, I think will not want to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, like who wants to be a certified class with a bunch of adult virgins? I mean, like I would. And like just for our lay listeners, so the difference between like a normal lawsuit and a class action lawsuit, especially in an employment law action, is that there's going to be way more opportunity for a bigger award in a class action. So this is why that matters. If it just ends up being Damore and Goodman, I mean, like even if they won, they wouldn't be looking at more than like maybe like mid six figures. I don't actually know what their demand is, but when you open up the class, that's when like the big numbers come into play. So that's why they care about certifying the class.
The other part of the class action issue is that these guys probably have waivers of their class action rights in their contracts. Google, just like most of the big tech companies, puts them in there. It's very common now that if you're employing someone who makes anything near good money, you make them sign an arbitration clause saying they'll arbitrate any claims with the company, and they waive their right to class action. Those clauses are currently illegal in the Ninth Circuit in California, but the case is up before the Supreme Court, and everyone expects that to come back the other way. With a 5-4 decision saying that class action waivers are in fact legal.
They'll stick a class action waiver in your face if you work on a call center too, though. I mean, it's not just people that make good money. It's this is
I think
practice. That's
right. But you, I guess I should say anyone who signs a contract is likely to have one in these settings. I wouldn't be surprised if we just see Google tell the judge, let's hold off on this because if the Supreme Court comes out the other way, we're just going to arbitrate this individually, and then nothing about it will see the light of day because arbitrations are confidential.
He's trying to argue himself into a protected category. I mean, that's the entire point of his suit, is that he's in a protected category, right? I don't know if other states have political viewpoint as a protected statutory class, but it seems like California does.
California doesn't. I mean, it sort of functions as it, right? I don't want to get too technical, but it's a separate statute, so it's not technically a protected class. But there are a bunch of states, pretty much exclusively liberal states, but a bunch of states protect political activity and sort of like a way of kind of mapping First Amendment protections onto employers in certain contexts.
He mentions that the board on the Google intranet, where people ask each other questions that they don't know the answer to, is Dory, the idiot fish from Finding Nemo. And I can't get over the fact that the googly way is, if you have any curiosity at all about a thing that you don't know, you are self-branded as dumb. It is the most tech thing that I can imagine, is that it is ignorance is to be shamed and Pixar.
Right.
Just keep swimming your own way.
Before we move on, I just want to share my favorite part of the complaint, which was there was a whole section, I guess, where some Google employee had like met with some like conservative asshole, and like security was notified that this like conservative blogger guy was on campus.
Oh, Curtis Yarvin.
Yeah.
Mencius Moldbug was on the Google campus.
Yes, and so he was escorted, and I guess they found out that there's like a list of conservative assholes who like aren't allowed on the Google campus, which includes Alex Jones. And I just think it's really cool that Alex Jones is banned from like all Google campuses.
I have the same policy in my apartment. There's something kind of like surreal as an employment lawyer about observing all this, because the entire episode kind of stems from his like inability to contextualize what's happening. Like Google is 70% male and its engineers are like 80% male. They do diversity training for the same reason that every other company does, right? It's good PR and it can be used successfully to defend against discrimination lawsuits. It's supposed to be kind of like, in a way, a wink and a nod, but he's just taking it at face value because he doesn't know how else to interpret it. And if he just kind of played along, he would be living his dream of like swimming, in a sea of white males. But instead, he's embroiled in litigation and circulated this memo because he actually believed that Google really did have the end goal of diversifying its engineers, which it
White
almost
genocide.
certainly fucking doesn't. Right.
Maybe talk a little bit just about what hostile work environment is and is not, because that's so much of what he's saying here. Because it's not just that people were mean or unreceptive to my stupid ideas. There's a bit more to it there. Can someone take that?
Yeah, Peter, can you do that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think what Damore is trying to say, and on behalf of the class, is that all of these message board posts together constitute harassment and or a hostile work environment, which is the legal term, which is, I think, even though when you put them all together, I think they're pretty strong in his favor. It's still pretty tough. Hostile work environments require the federal standard is severe and pervasive harassment on the basis of a protected category. So he's probably going to lose because he needs to prove that it's either because he's white or because he's male. Conservatism is not a protected category. If it was, I think they'd have a better shot at the harassment claims. But what's severe and pervasive, although the standard, to my understanding, I haven't litigated this, is a little bit lower in California. But it can be pretty high. It needs to occur with frequency. And it needs to be something that a reasonable person would consider fairly disruptive to their workplace. I'm not sure if this is it, because I don't know how often you're actually, as someone at Google, engaging with this sort of thing. And if it was just a few times a year and in this kind of message board context, it would be, from my perspective, they're not going to win that. It's not unwinnable, but it seems tough. I
have a question. So with the existence or not of a hostile work environment, would that be a question of fact? Would that be what puts this through summary judgment? Yeah,
I have a hard time seeing them winning this. Certainly not before summary judgment, but I have a hard time seeing them winning this on the law at this point.
Yeah.
Of course, that's if it proceeds as a class. If it doesn't, and you kind of isolate these, and they have to prove it per person, it's an uphill battle for the plaintiff in that situation.
Chuck Johnson now?
Yeah, the second case that I think we need to talk about, because we go from a case where a person we don't particularly like hired a good lawyer to write a good complaint to a person we truly loathe who hired a terrible lawyer to write gibberish.
Well, not just write gibberish, copy gibberish from somebody else. Yeah.
So
right. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's his own gibberish, but because I don't know who the other plaintiff was. But Chuck Johnson is suing Twitter for being banned. Everyone knows who Chuck Johnson is. The complaint, we got to get back to
No, but
the-
before we get back to it, he did. There's a guy named Dennis Prager, who was some sort of conservative radio host who was banned from YouTube, who wrote this almost exact complaint, and so Chuck Johnson went out and hired this tax lawyer who I think represented Wesley Snipes. In his tax protester lawsuit against the government, and this guy
Top of the game.
This
Top
guy
of the game.
copied the Prager lawsuit almost verbatim.
Okay, but they were Wesley Snipes' taxes. All right, this isn't just Joe Schmo over here. If you have a tax lawyer who can do Wesley Snipes' taxes,
And win.
surely they can sue Twitter.
He didn't win. He spent time in jail. How much could he have won? Like, it's a Pyrrhic victory. You won 3 years in prison.
Is that how you say it?
Congratulations.
Pyrrhic? I thought it was Furric. Pyrrhic?
I thought it was furry.
I thought it was furry. It's
Furry
Pyrrhic.
is when a furry wins a victory. A furric victory.
So he sued just because he got kicked off of Twitter. And all of the short version of why he got kicked off of Twitter is that he essentially threatened DeRay McKesson.
Which he doesn't even
Of all
mention it in
people.
his complaint, right?
He vaguely alludes to being accused of doing it, I think, but he does not admit to doing it. But he kind of threatened DeRay McKesson. He, at a different point, I think he identified the wrong woman as Jackie from the Rolling
Yes.
Stone
Yes,
story
he did.
and sicked people on her as well. I mean, one of the things that he says in his complaint is that he got kicked off annually or he got suspended annually. So there's not a lot of good faith at the beginning, but if it starts in bad faith, it careens horribly into awful faith because he considers his Twitter account a business relationship with Twitter.
So
And
cool.
and therefore he frames his complaint as he used Twitter to promote them, and Twitter in turn had an obligation to keep his business interests in mind as well. And it is really something to behold because
This is something that is a common theme with these guys, though, is that they believe that they have conferred this economic benefit on these platforms by spreading their nonsense garbage far and wide, and that somehow that they've brought all manner of users on, and that therefore that there is a mutually beneficial relationship that creates some kind of contract. Again, the Prager lawsuit is exactly that.
To me, like, the weird part of like this complaint is that like he seems to be arguing on one hand that Twitter is like a business and he's bringing money to the business, therefore there's like a weird contractual relationship there, and then also arguing that it's like a public forum and it's his right to be able to post bullshit all day and like dox people and stuff like that. So like I don't understand how he holds those two ideas in his mind at once.
I mean, I don't know that they're inconsistent. They're just both wrong.
Yeah.
They can be wrong and consistent with each other, but no, he tries to turn Twitter into a public forum using there aren't even steps to get there.
No,
there's
he just
just
said
like
that.
a step. It's just he's just like. According to me, because people speak in public, it is therefore a public forum, and you are a government actor because you
own it.
dependent on the government, right? But there's no actual way of demonstrating it.
They allow the government to speak there, that there's sort of this, they publicize the fact that Trump or other politicians speak there. Ergo, they become a state actor.
So
Right.
funny.
Right, that's it. It's all state action. And it's like that part seems very sov-sit, which makes sense that he hired Wesley Snipes' attorney because someone has to write sovereign citizen law with a straight face. And you might as well be the guy who doesn't believe in taxes.
There is this issue that there has been a concentration of channels of speech over time, right? So Facebook, Google, or not necessarily Google so much, but Twitter, et cetera, have, a lot of the sort of things that were once very atomized in terms of the way you would speak on the internet have kind of become concentrated in the hands of a few companies. He's not really making that point expressly here, but there is some of that going on.
Yeah, but I mean, this case is in the county of Fresno, not the district of Black Mirror. There isn't it's not a real town hall. It's a metaphor. He's trying to take a metaphor and create a legal doctrine out of a metaphor that is stretched way beyond you could make a plausible legal claim out of it.
I think there's no doubt that there's no legal claim here, right? I mean, there's no valid claim here. I mean, he's trying to make a public accommodation argument, and public accommodation laws have been applied to the internet, but it's been very limited, and it's things like making your website accessible to people who are blind, things like that. There's been nothing even close to what he's hinting at here, which is that he wants them to be regulated like a public utility that can't discriminate on viewpoint. The kind of irony being that a month ago, every single conservative in the country was taking the exact opposite position, saying that Baker dude didn't need to serve the gay couple, and that was not a violation of public accommodations laws. Right. But there's no claim here, right? But he's kind of hinting at a broader point about how these private companies can regulate speech that people on both sides of the spectrum have expressed some concern about. But it doesn't lead to an actionable claim. This is going to get tossed out.
I mean, the Baker doesn't even have the benefit of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which gives Twitter almost unfettered control of who they do and don't allow to use the forum, and pretty much immunizes them from discriminating.
Right. Well, not to mention that his Twitter presence is the functional equivalent of going into a bakery and fucking the cake. So I don't think it's a great analogy for him regardless.
Yeah. It's just all gibberish, and that there's an introduction, and I don't know, this is just kind of inside baseball for lawyers, but complaints tend to be written kind of tersely, kind of on the facts, kind of get in, get out, right? Mm-hmm. Putting aside the fact that we talked about James Damore having 61 pages of facts and 100 pages of memes, what Chuck Johnson has... He has 2 full pages of introduction, which is just talking about how important Twitter is as a communications medium to him. A preliminary statement that has no factual averments that goes on another 4 pages. He realleges and incorporates by reference each and every paragraph into the section deemed parties.
I can't wait to see Twitter's answer to this. What are they going to say? All allegations are denied, you fucking asshole. You're not even alleging anything.
They're going to move to dismiss. That's what they're going to do. Yeah.
Well, you have to answer.
But Christine is asking, how do you do the paragraph by paragraph answer? And there's going to be a whole lot of knowledge insufficient to form an opinion as to the rantings in paragraph 1. Twitter declines to rant in response to the rant of paragraph 2.
Yeah, the only way to win is not to play. 2018 is truly the year that we all start suing our haters, and I applaud Chuck for going for it.
Footnote kept simple.
Thank you, Kev.
Is a central part of the discrimination claim is that it was like a political act as opposed to a deeply, deeply personal act against a horrible, horrible person.
Right. I mean, imagine being the CEO of Twitter and then having to have someone explain who Chuck Johnson is to you. I mean, he must have been fucking furious.
One of the things that one of the Twitter employees said is that he keeps using loopholes. He keeps using loopholes to evade our bans, but we just essentially it's not the spirit of our rules, and so we're kicking him out despite the loopholes. And Chuck Johnson is a strict constructionist of the Twitter terms of service. And is very mad that his loophole, where he says something like, "It would be pretty bad if someone killed DeRay McKesson," isn't considered a direct threat.
Get him.
To get him. He didn't say kill him. He said to get him.
Yeah, he meant like emotionally, financially.
No, he meant. I mean,
Take
look,
him
it's
on a
pretty
nice
clear what he
date.
meant.
He meant like a journalistic takedown, right?
Yeah, he meant a journalistic takedown. He meant a journalistic takedown.
I mean, I don't think that he was raising money to kill DeRay, if we're going to be honest. I don't think that's what he was doing.
Let's not be honest. It's Chuck Johnson.
Yeah.
He was trying to kill the man.
He was. He's a murderer. And
I mean, I'm going to
he's
say
killed
this.
before.
I'm going to say this in defense of Chuck Johnson, though. Unlike,
Here we go.
here I am again. But unlike everybody else that we've
had
been
some good
goofing
ideas.
on regularly, he did not append any exhibits to this complaint, and for that, he should be commended.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a tight 21 pages.
I'll say something else in his defense. Conservative, media figures are often traditionally attractive in a way that I find regressive. And Chuck Johnson has just been at war with that idea for his entire career. I salute him.
good for you, Chuck. My favorite part of the complaint was that he put a dollar value on how much each follower is worth. Like, how the fuck do you figure that out? Like, each follower is worth $3.50.
There are sources.
I didn't see that. Where the fuck is my check, Twitter?
Have you guys not been buying
Your
followers?
check is in your wish list.
That's
Yes.
right. PayPal's in the bio.
This episode has been brought to you by the Rat Zapper 3000.
That's right.
One of the weird things about his complaint is that there's the causes of action are like unfair competition, interference with contract. I have never in my life seen those in this. Those are for situations where businesses are fraudulently competing with each other, like stealing each other's client lists and things like that.
Yes.
The idea that you could just bring that against Twitter and say they're somehow unfairly competing with Chuck Johnson. It's just fucking mind blowing. I have no idea what he's doing. And Damore also brought an unfair competition
It all
claim.
goes back to his belief that his business is Twitter.
Right.
And Twitter is a partner of his in that business. And that by kicking him off, he's got a civil rights complaint for political speech, and he's got, violations of their business code, and he's got a promissory estoppel complaint.
That's so cool. It's so cool.
It's all, it's really just very kitchen sink, but no pipes.
Right.
There is no water going to this sink at all.
It is a great confirmation of the fact that he, with Milo, with him, with Cernovich, if he ever gets thrown off, these guys completely begin and end with Twitter. And if you toss them off, it really does fuck them up. And he sort of is confessing to the ultimate own here.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think there's been with Milo especially, there was discussion in the beginning about whether this kind of platform denial would actually work, and it seems like it pretty clearly does, and at the very least bothers them very, very much, and they all kind of act unaffected when it happens, but they are incredibly salty.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I just figured out Twitter's response. Twitter's answer to the complaint. We'll just append a corn cob. That's it. That's it. You are owned.
And then
the Superior Court for the County of Fresno will be like,
what is to be corn cob?
we deem Chuck Johnson severely owned. The court finds Chuck Johnson is severely owned and is responsible for costs.
The ugliest findom there ever was.
And with that, you can go to the Got News address to donate your coins for kids. And I'm going to thank all of our panelists tonight. Thank you to Tarek and Christina and Peter and Robin. I am Charles. Have a good night, everybody.
Nice.
Good night.